Today we're going to uncover a disturbing paradox. How, in the age of infinite knowledge, we are creating the dumbest generation in history. And I promise you, the last revelation of this video is the most shocking of all, because it exposes the root cause behind this silent intellectual collapse that few dare to talk about. But before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like and share this video with those who still believe that intelligence automatically grows with technology. I assure you, what you'll discover today might change the way you see modern education, social media, and even your own habits of thought. Let's begin. For centuries, knowledge was something sacred. Ancient philosophers like Socrates and Confucius believed wisdom came not from knowing everything, but from recognizing how little one truly knows. The mind was a temple, and learning was a lifelong ritual of humility and self-examination. But in our age of digital abundance, information is no longer a treasure. It's a flood, a never-ending stream of content that drowns reflection and rewards distraction. Psychologists call this the illusion of competence. We scroll through facts, videos, and sound bites, and mistake this rapid exposure for understanding. We feel informed, yet our thoughts are shallow, our attention fractured, and our ability to think independently slowly decays. As neuroscientist Daniel Levitin explains, the modern world has made us addicted to input, but allergic to reflection. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sat with a single idea for more than a few minutes, without checking your phone or switching tabs, or feeling that anxious pull to move on to something else? That inability to focus is not accidental. It's engineered. Social platforms are designed to hijack your dopamine system, rewarding you for shallow engagement and punishing you for stillness. In the past, intellectual growth required patience, discipline, and solitude. Today, we reward speed over depth, noise over silence, and reaction over reasoning. The consequence? A generation that confuses being informed with being wise. Philosopher Neil Postman warned us of this decades ago in Amusing Ourselves to Death, when he said that we risk becoming a people who love their oppression and adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. What's terrifying is that we've accepted this intellectual decline as normal. We mock seriousness, idolize influencers over thinkers, and celebrate short bursts of content as education. The average attention span of a human being has dropped below that of a goldfish, not because we are less capable, but because we are being conditioned to be distracted. In a study from the University of California, researchers found that constant multitasking rewires the brain, making deep thought more difficult. The more we jump between notifications, messages, and media, the more our neural pathways adapt to expect interruption. In other words, the very way we think is being reshaped by the technology we depend on. And here lies the painful irony. We think we're evolving, but cognitively we're regressing. Critical thinking, creativity, and empathy are being replaced by algorithmic predictability. Education systems, instead of countering this trend, often amplify it, teaching students to memorize rather than to question, to repeat rather than to reason. So I ask you, are we really becoming smarter, or simply more efficient at being controlled? Because intelligence isn't about how much information we can consume, it's about how we process, integrate, and apply it. True intelligence transforms knowledge into wisdom, and wisdom cannot survive in a culture addicted to distraction. In the next part, we will go deeper into how modern systems, education, media, and even our economy are actively manufacturing intellectual weakness. You'll see how the very structure of our society rewards ignorance and punishes depth. And by the end, you'll understand why the final revelation may be the most alarming truth of all. The modern education system was once designed to enlighten minds, to cultivate curiosity, and to prepare individuals for a life of thoughtful contribution. But somewhere along the way, it transformed into a machine, one that values conformity over creativity, memorization over understanding, and obedience over critical thought. Think about the irony. We send children to school for more than a decade, yet most graduate without ever being taught how to think. They learn what to think, what to repeat, what to believe, but never how to question the world around them. Sir Ken Robinson once said, "Schools kill creativity," and he wasn't exaggerating. Our institutions were built on an industrial model, producing standardized minds to fit into standardized systems. And those systems, in turn, feed the very culture that rewards ignorance disguised as entertainment. When we teach students that there's only one right answer to every question, we kill the spirit of exploration that fuels true intelligence. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti warned that it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Yet this is exactly what our education prepares us for, to adapt to a system that values productivity over wisdom, image over substance, and compliance over truth. And once this conditioning begins, it doesn't stop in the classroom. It extends into the media we consume, the jobs we take, and the lives we build. The modern media landscape is no longer a tool for information, it's an instrument of manipulation. News outlets compete not to inform, but to provoke. Algorithms show us not what we need to know, but what keeps us emotionally charged, divided, and engaged. Every click, every scroll, every outrage is monetized. In this digital coliseum, critical thinking is not rewarded, emotion is. The more reactive you are, the more valuable you become. As journalist Matt Taibbi described, we don't have information wars anymore, we have anger wars. And anger, fear, and distraction are the perfect tools to ensure that people never pause long enough to ask, who benefits from my ignorance? It's not that human beings are becoming inherently dumber, it's that we are being programmed to remain intellectually passive. We outsource our thinking to influencers, celebrities, and commentators who tell us what to believe, what to hate, and what to feel, and we call that awareness. But awareness without reflection is noise. And noise, when repeated long enough, becomes the soundtrack of a culture in decline. The late philosopher Marshall McLuhan once said, "The medium is the message." In other words, the way we receive information shapes the way we think. When we consume endless short-form content, our minds adapt to that rhythm, fast, shallow, and impulsive. This constant stimulation leaves no room for deep comprehension, for patience, or for critical analysis. Our economy thrives on this superficiality. A distracted person is the perfect consumer. A restless mind buys more, scrolls more, and questions less. Entire industries are built on the premise that your attention can be captured, fragmented, and sold. The more you react, the more valuable you become, not as a thinker but as data. And while we are entertained, the collective intelligence of society quietly erodes. We are raising generations who no longer read books but rely on summaries, who no longer debate ideas but cancel opposing voices, who no longer seek truth but validation. The tragedy is not that people are losing intelligence, but that they are losing the desire to be intelligent. Psychologist John Twenger, in her research on generational trends, discovered a sharp decline in critical thinking and analytical skills among young adults. She attributes this partly to digital immersion, a life lived behind screens, where image matters more than insight. This constant connection has paradoxically created emotional and intellectual isolation. People are surrounded by information, yet starving for understanding. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you changed your mind about something important? In a culture that rewards certainty and punishes doubt, we've forgotten that the hallmark of intelligence is not having the right answers, but asking better questions. And that's exactly what has been lost. The courage to question, the patience to understand, the humility to admit we don't know. In the next part, we will go even deeper into the psychological and social mechanisms that make this dumbing down process not only possible, but profitable. You'll see how we've been subtly trained to accept mediocrity, to glorify ignorance, and to fear intellectual independence. And you'll begin to understand why the smartest people in history warned us that this moment would come. Because as we'll soon uncover, this is not just a cultural problem. It's a crisis of consciousness. And the system is built to keep it that way. We live in an era where distraction is currency and attention is the most valuable commodity. Every second of your focus is being fought over by companies, platforms, and institutions that have learned one simple truth: a distracted mind is an obedient mind. And the more fragmented your attention becomes, the easier it is to influence your thoughts, your emotions, and ultimately, your beliefs. This isn't accidental. It's a system, a design. Psychologist B.F. Skinner, one of the pioneers of behavioral conditioning, demonstrated that if you reward people randomly, They will keep repeating an action endlessly. That same principle is used in every social media app today. Every notification, every like, every new video is a tiny dopamine reward, a digital treat that keeps you hooked. We've become lab rats in a psychological experiment we never consented to. But the consequences of this go far beyond wasted time. Constant exposure to digital noise is changing the structure of our brains. Studies in neuroplasticity show that what we pay attention to literally rewires our neural pathways. When our minds are trained for speed, novelty, and instant gratification, deep thinking feels uncomfortable, silence becomes unbearable, and boredom, once the birthplace of creativity, now feels like a problem to be solved. Author Nicholas Carr, in his book The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, explains that we are losing our ability to concentrate for long periods. He writes, "What the net seems to be doing is chipping away my capacity for concentration and contemplation. This slow erosion of attention is the silent epidemic of our age. And it's not just making us less intelligent, it's making us easier to control. Because when people no longer have the patience to think, they start to believe whatever is easiest to believe. The truth becomes less about evidence and more about emotion. In this climate, propaganda thrives, not through censorship, but through overload. When everything is information, nothing is truth." The philosopher Hannah Arendt warned that the ideal subject of a totalitarian regime is not the convinced Nazi or the committed communist. It is the person for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exists. And that, tragically, describes much of our modern culture. We are bombarded with so much content that we no longer know what to trust. Instead of verifying, we simply absorb. Instead of thinking, we react. The result is a kind of intellectual numbness, a paralysis of analysis. People feel informed yet powerless, connected yet isolated, surrounded by opinions yet starved for understanding. And this is exactly the environment where mediocrity thrives. Look around. Everywhere we see the glorification of ignorance disguised as authenticity. Intelligence is mocked as elitism, and simplicity is celebrated as virtue. The more complex the world becomes, the more we cling to comforting illusions. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And in this age, the soul we avoid facing is our own intellect. This is why critical thinking is now a radical act. To think deeply is to resist. To question is to rebel. In a society built on distraction, attention itself becomes a form of power. But how did we get here? How did we build a world where the tools meant to liberate the mind became the very chains that bind it? The answer lies in how we've redefined progress. For centuries, progress meant the expansion of understanding, the pursuit of truth, the refinement of reason, the mastery of the self. But today, progress is measured in speed and convenience. Faster downloads, shorter videos, quicker answers. We no longer value knowledge for its depth, but for its accessibility. This constant acceleration has created what philosopher Byung-Chul calls the burnout society, a culture of exhaustion, where people are overwhelmed not by lack of information, but by its excess. In his words, we are not running out of time because there is too little of it, but because we have filled it with too much. And that exhaustion dulls the mind. It creates citizens who are too tired to question, too distracted to care, and too overwhelmed to act. The perfect environment for manipulation. So ask yourself, when was the last time you truly thought about your own thinking? When was the last time you disconnected from the noise long enough to feel your own mind breathe? Because the real tragedy of this generation is not that we lack intelligence, it's that we've forgotten how to use it. In the next and final part, we will reveal the ultimate truth behind this phenomenon, the hidden reason why the system benefits from keeping people intellectually weak. You'll discover what the ancients knew about consciousness, why modern society fears awakening, and most importantly, how you can break free from this engineered stupidity. The last revelation may challenge everything you think you know about intelligence itself, but once you see it, you can never unsee it. At the heart of this crisis lies a profound truth. The system does not want you to think. Not truly, because a thinking individual is unpredictable. A thinking individual questions, resists, and sees beyond illusion. And nothing is more dangerous to control than a mind that has awakened to its own power. When philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe," he was describing precisely what we see today, a mass culture that punishes independent thought and rewards conformity. The tribe has simply become digital. Instead of being burned at the stake, thinkers are now burned on social media, ridiculed, silenced, and exiled from the comfort of collective approval. We are told what to believe, how to feel, and what side to take, and we obey not because we are forced, but because we fear isolation. The modern system has perfected what ancient rulers could only dream of: voluntary submission through psychological conditioning. The dumbing down of humanity is not a side effect of progress. It is the mechanism by which control is maintained. A distracted, divided, and emotionally unstable population cannot organize, cannot resist, and cannot evolve. The ancient philosopher Plato warned that when ignorance governs the mind, society collapses into chaos. He called it the tyranny of the ignorant, where people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. And isn't that exactly where we are? Surrounded by knowledge but starved of wisdom, drowning in voices but unable to hear truth. We live in what author Neil Postman foresaw, a culture that doesn't need to be censored because it is too entertained to care. Bread and circuses have become likes and followers, but here's the revelation, the one I promised from the beginning, the most powerful truth of all. Intelligence is not something we are losing, it's something we are surrendering. Every time we let a screen think for us, every time we accept an answer without questioning it, every time we trade reflection for convenience, we give away a fragment of our sovereignty. And that surrender, repeated over generations, creates the illusion that intelligence itself is vanishing. But it isn't gone. It's dormant, waiting to be reclaimed. The philosopher René Descartes once said, "I think, therefore I am." But today we might say, "I scroll, therefore I forget." To reclaim our minds, we must remember what it means to think, not as an act of ego, but as an act of freedom. To think is to reclaim your attention, to observe your thoughts without being ruled by them, to choose silence over noise, to seek understanding over validation. Thinking is not a luxury. It is a moral responsibility in a world built on manipulation. If you wish to escape the gravitational pull of collective stupidity, start by doing what the system fears most: disconnect. Create distance between yourself and the constant stream of stimulation. Read deeply, reflect slowly, ask questions no algorithm can answer. Because wisdom is not found in data, it is born in reflection. The ancients understood this. The Greek Stoics practiced stillness to master the mind. The Buddhists practiced mindfulness to dissolve illusion. Even modern psychologists like Viktor Frankl discovered that meaning is not found in what happens to us, but in how we interpret it. That's what separates the conscious human from the conditioned one, the ability to choose thought over reaction. And that's the hope. Despite everything, we are not doomed to stupidity. The same tools that enslave us can also free us, if we learn to use them consciously. Technology is not the enemy. The enemy is unconsciousness. When we use tools mindfully, they amplify intelligence. When we use them blindly, they replace it. So the question becomes, will you remain a consumer of noise or become a creator of thought? Because this generation still has a choice. It can continue down the path of distraction, where depth disappears and consciousness collapses. Or it can awaken and remember that intelligence is not measured by what we know, but by our capacity to understand, to question, and to grow. This awakening begins in silence. It begins when you put the phone down, close the screen, and sit with your own thoughts long enough to remember that your mind is not a product, it's a universe. A living, breathing field of consciousness capable of infinite expansion. When you feed it only fragments, it withers. But when you nurture it with depth, with reflection, with truth, it evolves. That is how civilizations rise, not through machines, but through minds that refuse to be programmed, minds that dare to imagine a better reality and then create it. This is not just a warning, it's an invitation to think again, to observe again, to live consciously again, because the world does not need more opinions, it needs more awareness. So as we close, remember this: the dumbest generation in history will not be the one that had no knowledge, but the one that forgot how to use it. Don't let that be us. If this message resonated with you, Take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with those who still believe that intelligence is just about information. Remind them that the real revolution begins in the mind, because the future will not belong to the smartest machines, it will belong to the most conscious humans. And that future begins with you. Thanks for looking.